Just for Annie Costabo to drop this bombshell of an article, my goodness, the owners are not responding to the players' latest offer. They're not even responding to it. They're not sending an account. They are done with the chit chat. They are done with the games and the back and forth. It looks like the owners are about to lock.
2 full weeks. That's how long WNBA ownership has gone completely silent after receiving the players' most recent proposal. 2 weeks without a response, and now we're just 48 hours away from the January 9th deadline. That's no longer negotiation, that's a message. When one side stops engaging entirely, it usually means the decision has already been made. What we're seeing right now is the clearest indication yet that the 2026 WNBA season is heading straight toward a lockout. This isn't rumor or speculation anymore. Front Office Sports confirmed it on January 7th, validating what insiders had been quietly suggesting for days. The league received the union's counterproposal around December 23rd. Since then, absolute silence. No counteroffer. No scheduled calls. Not even a formal acknowledgement. Ownership has completely disengaged from the process.
We're seeking a salary cap of over $10 million and 30% of league revenue. We already know the owner said doing something like this will cause them to lose $700 million plus. Are y'all crazy? Let's get into this article, man. This is by Annie Costabo. Shout out to you. Let's get into it. A little more than...
So let's break down what the players are actually asking for. Their proposal includes a $10, $5 million salary cap, and a demand for 30% of gross league revenue. To put that into perspective, the current salary cap is just $1. $5 million. That's not a small increase. That's a 7 times jump. Under this plan, the average player's salary would rise from roughly $50,000 to well over $530,000. Maximum contracts would begin at $1, $3 million, and escalate to nearly $2, $78 million by the end of the agreement. Now compare that to the league's offer from early December. Ownership proposed 70% of net revenue, which sources say equates to less than 15% of total league revenue, and a salary cap increase from $1. $5 million to $5 million. That's still more than triple the current cap. But the players rejected it outright, essentially saying, we want double the money you're offering, and we want to calculate it from gross revenue instead of net.
They submitted roughly 2 weeks ago as of Wednesday afternoon. They haven't responded to these ladies in 2 weeks. They're done. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's over. It's over. They haven't responded. It's January 7th. The owners didn't even want the deadline to be extended this long because they was already done with the back and forth. They have not responded in 2 weeks. The deadline is in 2.
And this is where the numbers start to break down. According to ESPN's reporting, league financial analysts evaluated the players' proposal and concluded that accepting those terms would result in approximately $700 million in losses over the life of the deal. That's not a rounding error. That's a financial cliff.
And its teams over the duration of the CBA, according to that report. They're not doing it. They're not doing a $10.5 million salary cap with 30. It's not happening. Caitlin Clark talked about compromise. Where's the compromise coming from, y'all? You've heard a lot of chatter about what we're asking for is not sustainable for the business, Nafisa Collier said during an Unrivaled broadcast Monday. Being on this side with Unrivaled, I know what it takes to run a sustainable business. Respectfully, y'all doing 3.
Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Back in November, the players overwhelmingly authorized a strike with a 98% approval rate and 93% participation. That's about as strong a mandate as you'll ever see. But here's the twist. Right now, it's ownership that has stopped responding, which means if play is halted, it won't be a strike initiated by the players. It will be a lockout imposed by the owners. That distinction matters. A strike suggests players walking away. A lockout sends a much colder message. Ownership deciding it's done entertaining demands they believe are unrealistic. It's a power move. And based on the timeline, the lack of communication, and everything we're seeing unfold, That's exactly the direction this is heading.
Y'all not traveling all around the world, paying for all these bigger rings. Y'all not doing all of that, man. Stop. Y'all playing 3-on-3 in the same gym every day. No disrespect. It's cool. I'm glad everybody's making their money. I hope everybody get their money and stay healthy. But it's not the same thing. Stop it. Just stop, man. And at the same time, y'all talking about partnering with the WNBA, but you constantly taking shots. This is part of the reason they probably ain't responding to your ass.
Now let's talk about the unrivaled comparison, because it keeps coming up. On Monday, Kelsey Plum appeared on an Unrivaled broadcast and said, quote, "You've heard a lot of chatter about what we're asking for not being sustainable. Being on this side with Unrivaled, I know what it takes to run a sustainable business." She's presenting Unrivaled as proof that the WNBA's financial concerns are exaggerated. But that comparison falls apart under even basic scrutiny. Unrivaled is 3-on-3 basketball, played in the same gym every single day. There's no league-wide travel, no arena rentals across a dozen cities, no charter flights crisscrossing the country for a 40-game season, no massive operational overhead. They're running 6 courts inside one facility and rotating games. That business model is entirely different. Suggesting that 1 year of Unrivaled proves the WNBA can support a $5 million salary cap is like comparing apples to aircraft carriers.
Climbed to almost $2,780,000 respectively. So at the end of the day, man, the owners have checked out. They said, listen, man, we done with the games. We're done with the back and forth. They haven't responded for 2 weeks. The owners haven't responded to these ladies for 2 weeks. They after all of these talks, 2 extensions later, y'all are still talking about 30% of the revenue.
Here's another piece that isn't being talked about enough. Ownership already agreed to extend the deadline twice. The original collective bargaining agreement was set to expire on November 30th, 2024. Both sides pushed that deadline back and then pushed it back again. The second extension wasn't something ownership wanted. They were already frustrated with the prolonged negotiations, but they agreed anyway, likely in good faith, hoping the extra time would lead to a compromise. Instead, the players returned with a proposal that essentially doubled the league's offer. And ownership's response wasn't a counter, it was silence. That tells you everything about where their mindset is. They gave more time. They received a proposal they view as financially impossible. And they've decided there's nothing left to discuss. Meanwhile, Adam Silver is publicly discussing NBA expansion into Europe. He's not at the WNBA bargaining table. He's not mediating. He's not stepping in to bridge the gap. The players wanted his involvement. They wanted NBA backing. They wanted those deep pockets to make their demands feasible. But Silver's absence sends a clear message. This is the WNBA's issue, not the NBA's responsibility.
With the rookies, Caitlin Clark, the rookie contract players, the Sonia Citrons, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese's, bring in the draft picks, Olivia Miles, Flau'jae, Lauren Betts, all of these draft picks, bring them in. You got Lexi Brown and Kalani Brown under contract, and move on replacement players at this point. I want to see Caitlin Clark play in the WNBA in 2026, and I don't care if it's against Nafisa Collier or if it's against replacement players and new drafted players. I don't give a damn. I want to watch Caitlin Clark. This is not.
So what happens if January 9th arrives without a deal? There are really 3 possible outcomes. First, both sides could agree to a third extension, delaying the conflict yet again. But given ownership's complete silence, that seems unlikely. Why extend talks you're not even participating in? Second, the league could enter a status quo period where the current CBA remains in effect while negotiations continue. Under that structure, players could still strike, but only after formally terminating the extended agreement. That gives ownership leverage by forcing the players to make the first move toward a work stoppage. The third option, and increasingly the most likely, is a full lockout. Ownership shuts things down and makes it clear the season won't happen unless the players return with a proposal they consider realistic.
This no more. They're not covering it. They're not talking about this stuff on ESPN, on Fox, nothing. Nobody's talking about Unrivaled. It's dead right now. I'm keeping it real. Even as a creator, when you create content about Unrivaled, the numbers is low. Nobody's really checking for it. Let's keep it real. Y'all playing games, and it seems like the owners are done with the back end 4th. They have not responded for 2 weeks, and we are 2 days away from the January 9th deadline. It's about to be a lockout. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think. This is Keep the Vision. Make sure you like.
Let's actually walk through what a lockout would look like in real terms. The 2026 WNBA draft is scheduled for April. Free agency usually opens in February. Training camps typically begin in April and May, and the regular season tips off in May. If ownership locks the players out on January 9th, every single one of those processes is immediately frozen. No free agent signings, no trades, no training camps. Nothing moves forward. But here's where things get complicated. Rookie contracts operate differently. Players like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Cameron Brink are already under contract. The incoming draft class in April, players like Olivia Miles, Kiki Iriafen, and Lauren Betts would be signing rookie deals. So the real question becomes, can the league technically operate using only rookies and players who are already under contract? Legally, the answer might be yes. Practically, that's a very different story. You'd be looking at rosters packed with first and second-year players, massive talent imbalances between teams, and a product that looks nothing like what fans are used to seeing. But if ownership is truly done negotiating, if they're willing to let this play out, then replacement players and rookies may be exactly what we end up with. And here's the uncomfortable truth that almost nobody wants to say out loud. The WNBA's ratings explosion in 2024 was driven overwhelmingly by one player. Caitlin Clark's games averaged around 2 million viewers. Games without her averaged closer to 400,000. That's a 3-to-1 difference. So if the choice comes down to no season at all or a season featuring Caitlin Clark surrounded by rookies and replacement players, which option do you think casual fans would choose? The diehard WNBA fans, the ones who've supported the league for years, would be furious. They'd boycott. They'd call it a betrayal. But the newer fans, the ones who tuned in because of Clark, might not care who she's playing against as long as she's on the court. That's a harsh reality, but it's almost certainly part of the calculation ownership is making right now. This entire situation exposes the core tension that's been building inside the WNBA for years. You have veteran players who've sacrificed endlessly, playing overseas every winter just to make ends meet, watching NBA players earn generational wealth while they struggled to get by. They see the success of 2024 and think, this is finally our moment. This is when we get paid what we're worth. And emotionally, they're not wrong to feel that way. But business reality doesn't operate on fairness, sacrifice, or what people deserve. It operates on revenue, expenses, and whether the numbers actually work. And right now, the numbers don't work. The league reportedly brought in record revenue in 2024, somewhere between $200 and $250 million based on available reporting. That's tremendous growth. But when players are asking for 30% of gross revenue and a $5 million salary cap across 12 teams, you're talking about roughly $125 million going to player salaries alone. Add in operational costs, chartered flights, upgraded facilities, housing stipends, fertility benefits, and all the other demands, and suddenly the league is spending far more than it's bringing in. The players would argue that this is a short-term problem, that investing heavily now will accelerate growth, that you have to spend money to make money. There's logic in that argument, but it requires ownership to gamble hundreds of millions of dollars on that belief. And these aren't NBA owners with limitless capital. These are WNBA owners who've lost money for years, who stayed committed because they believed in the league's potential, who finally saw a light at the end of the tunnel, and are now being asked to push themselves even deeper into debt on the promise that it'll pay off someday. Can you really blame them for saying no? Can you blame them for looking at a proposal projected to cost $700 million and simply walking away from the table? Because that's exactly what's happened here. They haven't countered. They haven't negotiated. They've just stopped responding. And when one side stops talking in a negotiation, it usually means the decision has already been made. The real tragedy is that both sides ultimately want the same thing: a thriving, financially sustainable WNBA that pays its players well. But they're worlds apart on how to get there. The players see compromise as accepting less than they deserve. Ownership sees the players' demands as financial suicide. Now we're less than 48 hours from the deadline. No deal. No dialogue. One side refusing to engage. So what happens next? If I had to handicap it, I'd say there's about a 70% chance of a lockout, a 20% chance of a third extension that includes major concessions from the players, and maybe a 10% chance of a last-minute breakthrough. Ownership holds the leverage. They can operate without veteran players if they absolutely have to. They can rebuild with rookies. It's not ideal, but it's possible. The players, on the other hand, need the season to happen. Most can't afford to miss an entire year of income. Some could go overseas. But that's not realistic for everyone, especially players with families or injury concerns. That pressure sits squarely on the union, and ownership knows it. By going silent, by refusing to engage, ownership is forcing the players to come back with something more realistic. It's hardball negotiation. It's uncomfortable. It's going to anger a lot of people. But it may be the only path toward a deal that actually works financially. So the question for fans is simple. What do you want to see happen? Do you want players to get everything they're asking for, even if it risks massive financial losses and long-term instability? Do you want owners to hold firm, even if it means a lockout and a compromised 2026 season? Or do you want both sides to find middle ground, even though right now they seem miles apart? Because here's the reality. If a lockout happens, if the 2026 season is canceled or played with replacement players, all the momentum from 2024 disappears. The casual fans who discovered the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark won't sit through a labor dispute. They'll move on. And the league risks sliding right back to where it was, fighting for relevance, struggling for viewership, and trying once again to prove it deserves to exist. That's what's truly at stake here. Not just money, not just the CBA, but the entire future trajectory of women's professional basketball in America. And with just 2 days left before the deadline and ownership refusing to respond, that future looks more uncertain than it has in years. Let me know in the comments what you think should happen. Should the players accept the owner's offer? Should ownership meet them halfway? Or is a lockout inevitable? Subscribe because this story is far from over, and we'll be tracking every development as it unfolds.